And we'll go ahead and get started. First on the agenda is approval of minutes. They're all listed in the PDF packet everybody's got in front of them. I was not here last meeting. Anybody have edits?
The only thing I saw was, where it says Virginia Rice came in, or she was walking with a friend and her dog. It was just her dog, wasn't it? Well, you weren't here.
And she met up with a friend.
When she got to Oracle, she met up with a friend. It was just Virginia, if that matters.
I don't
I was
know.
under the impression that she was walking by herself with a dog.
I don't know that it does, but we'll make the correction again.
That was the only thing I saw.
Anything else?
I was curious what the discussion of the digital monitor is being considered for the,
Where you at?
sorry, under miscellaneous. There's a missing sign on the cost of pool details at the moment, and discussions of a digital monitor is being considered. I wasn't sure what that was. Prices. No, they're gonna get a digital sign. Okay. Okay.
Any other corrections to the minutes? Is no vote for a motion to approve
I'll make a motion to approve.
as corrected?
That's corrected.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor of approving the minutes as corrected, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Moving on to public participation, we've got one already on the agenda, Vincent Cooper. Is Mr. Cooper in attendance?
No, it's not.
Okay, with that, I'll open up the floor. Does anybody else like to participate on the budget forum? Go ahead.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm here to let you know of some issues that concern many taxpayers about the new pool and the company that was hired to manage it, Midwest Pool Management.
Could you give us your name?
Sabrina Lovejoy. The first issue that was brought to my attention by a current lifeguard was that the manager of the pool, Emily Edson, was group texting the lifeguards and trying to organize a protest at the pool during open hours. She was trying to get lifeguards to hold pro-abortion pro-abortion signs at their lifeguard stands. One of the texts sent to the guards by Emily Edson read, "Down guards, hold the stand in front and get the pro-lifers out." So this brings up the second issue. Pro-lifers do not feel welcome at the new pool. Would a lifeguard rescue us if we needed help? We don't know. I emailed Chad Beasley, Executive Division Manager at Midwest Pool Management, about my concerns. He stated they would look into this matter and address it. More citizens emailed him as well, and instead of replying, he blocked their emails. Not a good look. While no protest happened at the pool that day, 0 corrective action was taken for the pool manager planning a protest during work hours at a taxpayer-funded facility. 0 corrective action was taken about the statements Emily Edson made about keeping pro-lifers out. The third issue many parents are concerned about is pool management allowing vulgar and obscene music to play over speakers at the public pool. This can not only be heard at the pool, but can be heard at the track and homes in the area. It was brought to my attention today, a lady that lives near the park can hear the music. Lastly, I'd like to bring up an incident that happened in the ladies' room. Some young children were a man exposed himself to some young children while he was taking a shower in the ladies' bathroom. And this is not acceptable. Something needs done about it. It's pedophile behavior. Grown adults should know not to expose themselves in a public pool shower. They should be taking their shower with a swimsuit on, not exposing themselves to little kids that are in the room. As a parent, it's very scary. Something needs done to prevent this from happening again. This time he exposed himself to little girls and got away with it. Next time it might be worse. Do something before anything worse happens. The pool is a taxpayer-funded facility. No protests should be happening at the pool. All taxpayers should be welcome. Park Board needs to take action and address these issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public participation? Back, go ahead.
My name is Kelly Beal. I would like to address the incident of the man in the bathroom. There was a woman who made a post on her private Facebook page that stated she had to have a conversation with her two daughters about why a person may have breasts and a penis. Because the children later in the evening came to their mother and said that they saw someone in the shower, the curtain had moved while this person was showering, and they saw someone that appeared to have breasts and a penis. So this would not be a man, per se. The mother didn't mention if this was a transgender person or perhaps an intersex person. The mother has since deleted the post, refuses to speak about it. The newspaper tried to interview her. She refused to be interviewed. I don't think it's right to automatically assume that there was a man in the women's bathroom. Some men do have breasts, and some women have what appears to be male genitalia. Honestly, intersex people, this is a very common thing, and most people are not aware of it and do not educate themselves on it. Approximately 1 in 100 people are considered intersex. So they are born, it's called DSD, it's sexual development, a disorder in sexual development. And it ranges from anything from something as small as misplacement of the urethra on male genitalia to, which is about 1 in 250 to 400 male births, to things as extreme as about 1 in 13,000 women have, it's genetic mutations where there'd be an XXY chromosome and they may have genitalia that don't develop breasts but have genitalia that appears to be male but can be corrected with surgery. Genitalia that appears to be male and cannot be corrected with surgery other than transgender surgery. And it's just, I think the community needs to educate itself a little bit better on what could have happened instead of automatically jumping to the conclusion that there was a man in the women's locker room at the pool. Most transgender people are not going to put themselves in the position to be exposed and called out, nor are most intersex people. I'm sure what happened was an accident. It was not intentional, and it's just been blown way out of proportion. When the woman that this happened, that it happened to her children, isn't concerned enough to come forward. I think it's just been blown way out of proportion. And there's some great TED Talks out there on intersex and the prevalence of it, and I think people should maybe just educate themselves a little bit on what's going on. And as far as the protest, there was never a protest at the pool. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public participation? Seeing none, we will move on down the agenda. Next on the list is the financial report.
Good evening. The information you have in front of you was printed yesterday, so that would include, so it's up-to-date financials. On the first page, the side on the left, where it shows those cash balances, we have paid current the contractors for both of the projects. So we paid them on like the 26th, and reimbursement has been requested today. So that negative 398, that is just where it is now, but we are expecting that 398 to come back in reimbursement from the debt service funds. So don't be overly alarmed by that. On the second half of the page is our Fund 12, which is the operating part fund accounts. And as to me, they look good. And we will be doing another budget adjustment before the September 30th, and we will be adjusting the pool gate receipts and whatever else may be needed. So that would be a positive increase in the pool gate receipts. We had budgeted 75,000, and as of this printing, it was 77. So we still have approximately 3-4 weeks of operation left. So we'll adjust the budget for an according number. And other items will be adjusted as needed, but that one just really stands out. The next page is the budgetary line item expenses for yesterday, and some of the detail is on the other half of the page. This page, okay, on the right-hand side is what we call the Fund 20. And that is where the capital projects of the aquatic facility and the park, that's where those transactions are occurring, those construction costs and equipment purchases. And that's just further detail. Then the final page of the financial report is the Excel spreadsheet of what our expenses are. On the left-hand side, where it says Herner contract. So the contract amount was $4,337,000. This still just reflects the payment as of May the 1st. I did not get that updated, I'm sorry. But at that point in time, there was $2 million left to pay hard. Since then, we have had at least two more payments. Those numbers have been adjusted. but we are still on track for the unobligated amount of $288. On the aquatic facility side, the Carruthers contract, it's a similar format. The Carruthers contract line item is current through the payment on the 26th. And we have a final retainage amount of $13,200 that needs to be dispersed to them when everything is checked off and cleared. But we do have a slightly higher amount of unobligated funds on the aquatic facility debt. And I need to continue to contact with our legal counsel and our bond advisor on how those funds can be, if they, how they can be appropriated or returned, at the end of the construction period. And in the new budget year, City Council is doing their Finance Committee meetings, and we have prepared budgets for Fund 12 and Fund 20, including all of the debt service obligations that we will have. And each one of those funds have a positive, say, projected balance of revenues being higher than the expenses. So I know that's been our concern, but we're looking good at this point in time. And, please contact me if you have any other questions or some of these numbers, where we're at. Have we paid for this, have we not paid for that? I'll get Steve information as quickly as I can, and we'll get you the information you need.
Thank you. I'll admit I didn't study all of the standard financial reports in depth this month. Is there anything that stands out that we need to look at? It sounds like you're pretty comfortable with everything.
This is still new territory for us. I mean, we've never issued $8 million for two projects like this within a year and a half. But
Those giant checkbooks.
right. But everything is still progressing the way we think it should. So we'll just keep plugging along.
Any questions, comments for Carmen?
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on down the agenda, superintendent report. Steve, you're up.
All right. Just a little report on kind of where we are in the parks right now. I don't know if we ever really got around to talking about Ability KC this year much. Did I bring that up before? I know they've been with us.
Yes.
We've talked about it past years, I don't know if it's come up this year.
Yeah, and they contacted us early in the season and then kind of surprised here they were. But they are good help. It's a good program. It's kids going into their senior year of high school that have the requirement is to have an IEP, and typically these kids would have a hard time finding a job elsewhere, and have a job coach that goes around with them, and from Monday through Friday, 8 to noon, and for the last 5 years, they've done jobs in the task force in the park, and it's been a win-win for us. It's good to get back, and they help us out with a lot of small projects, and they kind of learn as they go, and just kind of win-win. But listed there is some of the tasks they did. They painted they did a lot of weed pulling in all of our parks. They cleaned bathrooms and things like that on the daily. Changed a lot of trash cans, none of the fun stuff, but they painted benches in the Porkle Park. They did some sign work out on the trails and just picked up debris and stuff on the trails. Just lots of stuff like that. And, good group of kids, and it's just a good program. So I'm glad we get a chance to do that. The bids are out on the.
How long do you have them?
Actually, they're done now. I think 2 weeks ago it's like a 6-week program. Last year, was it, 2 years ago? Might have been two. COVID kind of messed it up. I can't remember. It's been like the last 2 years with the COVID, and anyway, so it's strung out longer. I think last year it was more of an 8-week because they had to leave for a while, and we had half of our staff on leave. I think that might have been 2 summers ago, though. Anyway, it's a 6-week program.
How many participated?
We had 4 this year.
4.
Yeah. So, and they're not exactly camera kids. There was 2 camera kids, I think a Lathrop kid, just area kids anyway. So, and I know from a few years ago, we had the school district hire one of those kids, called me after, because one of these kids applied to help out with the maintenance staff, and I think he worked for the school for a while, so it is a benefit. They'll learn how to run weed eaters, and some of the stuff is just dependent on where they are and what we feel like they're capable of tackling, and those type of things. Any other questions on the ability to keep seafood? We are currently out for bid for the pool parking lot. Oh wait, never mind. Oh, no, asphalt crack repair, sorry, I couldn't read my own typing. Neil fired up the crack sealer from, he's been in the street department for several years, so he's kind of like old hat to him. So he fired up the crack sealer and went out. They did all of our parking lots, the ADA trail at the reservoirs, the parking lot, the asphalt parking lot off of Summit Road at the reservoirs. We actually used it on our tennis courts, first time we used that product. I think it's actually going to hold up better than anything we've used in the past. So that's going well. We will start working on a parking lot out around the reservoir here, probably mid-August or so. Moving on to the parks update, or the pool update, that's where our asphalt bids are. It's out for bid now. That window closes August 10th. Then we'll take those bids to the city council for the August 15th meeting for approval. Will we be in a partnership with the street department and us as far as doing some of that preliminary grading and because we'll have to get it more level than it is currently before they come in with asphalt. But we're looking at 6 inches of asphalt. We'll have to lower it as well, but we'll have 2 ADA spots and like a drop-off ADA entrance or spot. We did install new security cameras at the pool. They just got in this last week. We've had some incidents earlier in the season with break-ins in the parking lot, so we needed to try to address that as quick as possible. And I think our new system will take care of that. Carruthers is working on all the punch list stuff. They're probably getting close to all they can do before the season's over. They still have quite a bit of stuff they'll have to do after the pool's empty and after everybody's out of there for the season. But did want to take a chance to, Midwest Pool Management is in attendance tonight. I thought maybe they could, Chrissy Withrow, their owner, maybe could come up and just give a little report on how the season's going for them so far at Aquatic Center. Maybe speak to some of these reports and these type of things that we've heard about today.
Good evening. I'm Chrissy Withrow. I'm president of Midwest Pool Management, and we've been very honored to be part of this first year of the facility, and have really felt it's gone well. In the aquatics industry, I'm sure a lot of you hear about the lifeguard shortages and the issues that pools are having. We have had more than enough staff. We have, had the pool open. I know that there's some new programming and stuff that you want to do in the future, and we're excited to hopefully be a part of that as well. To address a few of the concerns, we do understand the passion and the concern of the protest incident. As soon as we heard about it, we addressed it immediately with our staff. Obviously, I can't share any kind of discipline actions or anything like that we did, but we did address it. We had full-time staff, at the facility to make sure that there were no incidents on that day, and have had constant, communication with the staff to make sure that, you know, everybody knows that, you know, how they're supposed to act at the facility and, you know, towards the public. I can assure you that all of our staff are trained to protect everybody that comes into the facility, no matter what their beliefs are. You know, there's no discrimination whatsoever. You know, we have a lot of communications, with Steve. You know, my team, you know, is talking to him constantly about, you know, any issues from, you know, maintenance to, safety concerns to, you know, issues of people that, you know, come into the facility, just to talk through that, you know, anything that's reported to us. You know, unfortunately, the one situation was not reported to us at all, or we would have addressed it the same way for sure.
You talked about the bathroom situation?
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Again, we're just, very excited to be here, and, you know, it's been great being a part of this community. So if there's any other questions or concerns that I can address, please let me know.
Have you had any other reports of like injuries or any?
A few,
Like
I
that
mean,
from the
just the
black
regular, you know, cuts, scrapes. I think there might have been a couple bee stings at some points.
Nothing from the black slide though?
The black slide?
Yeah.
Was that the speed slide? Yes, there was at the beginning that we immediately addressed, with Steve, and I believe they had somebody come out and do some structural checks. I can't speak to what all happened with that.
We'll dive into that a little bit further.
We took the recommendations from what was given to us from there, and then all along with that.
Has anything been done about the music? I
That
asked my wife
is
about it
actually new
tonight.
information to me.
Yeah, I
tonight,
asked her
so that is
tonight, and
something
she
we
said,
will
yeah, they
absolutely
are.
address immediately.
Well,
And
yeah.
also talk about, you know, specific radio stations, or, I'm not sure, honestly, I'm sorry, I don't know what music is played there. but-
No, because it's, the Parks iPad, they're playing music, and it's some clean playlist I think it's pool, summer pool clean, I mean, and it's on a loop, it's like a 6-hour, 8-hour playlist. It doesn't have any cuss words in it, so I don't know if these
I don't know if
days.
somebody plugged something,
Right.
yeah, I mean, it is something we're absolutely gonna address.
Okay.
And just
Right.
like, you know, anything that's reported to us, we wanna know, we want the feedback, we wanna hear what's going on, so we can, you know, help direct this youth. You know, they are younger, and, you know, we do help direct them and mentor them to, you know, follow a positive path.
I had heard about the music, but I heard from people say that they were, it was how you would hear it on the radio, like it's edited, you know, it may be a song that might be inappropriate if it's played
A vulgar song would have been edited.
correctly, but it's an edited version.
Well, my wife
To
goes
where-
quite a bit, and she
Yes,
said.
and she's heard it?
She's heard it.
Okay.
Yes. I asked her again the night before
Yeah.
I left, and she said absolutely.
So,
That
yeah,
it's-
we
yeah.
definitely need to. change
Yeah,
that.
we will first check to see if we've had people plug in something
I'm
different.
not sure what they're doing, or,
Also,
yeah.
get some feedback from staff to, see if they're hearing the same things, and if we need to make some recommendations on changing the stations.
Okay.
Awesome. I do hear a lot of positive things though. I mean, I go places, people constantly saying positive things about it, so. Doesn't sound like it tonight, but I do hear a lot of positive stuff.
It's great, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah,
We know that there's gonna be different things that happen, and.
absolutely. But you can't fix it if it's not reported or
Exactly.
turned in, or you don't know about it. But I do hear a lot of positive things. It's good for our town.
Good, it is, it's a great facility.
Yeah, we're not trying to give you all negative stuff.
I appreciate that, but I do know there are
No.
concerns, and I'm
Since
glad
you're
that
here.
some people brought the concerns to our attention so that we can continue to address them. And, you know, we hope things that we have addressed haven't continued on, since we have discussed those.
Do you know anything about the pool rentals? Like, I know we've had a friend and different people have said they haven't been getting contacted or called back regarding pool rentals.
I know that we have
So-
received some calls and we have booked some, so,
Right.
if there is any, I'm happy to leave my email address and everything too, if people need to get a hold of me to make sure that gets taken care of.
Okay.
I know Steve has that information too, and can share that.
Sorry, I have another question. On somebody's public participation, they mentioned they tried to email and their emails were blocked?
That is not true as far as I know, but.
Okay.
In regards to the question about the blocked emails, I can assure you that I responded to every single email that came across with a reply. There was one from an internal parent that I called them directly with no callback, but I did reply to every single email that was sent to me.
Thank you.
Any other questions right now? We may call you back up to the hot seat later on.
No problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you.
Steve, can we circle back up to the asphalt? Is that just gonna be a resurface, or is there gonna be anything done to the?
We're gonna use the bases there, but we probably will have to bring in, because we're gonna have to cut from the north side and fill the south side and regrade, and I don't know, we'll have to look and see how, because I know that's been chip and sealed. I don't know, Bill, how many years have been chip and sealed? Forever, since 36 years. So see how much we do need to bring in, and yeah, if that's the case, we'll have to fill in the low spots and roll in a good base for fire. But 6 inches of asphalt over a significant base should be fine.
Has there been any estimate for longevity of the new surface put out there?
That is, I'm sure there is. I'd have to look at the bid specs on that, because we're piggybacking on this street department asphalt project, so I can get back with you on that. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm just curious.
Yeah, I'm
I'm
not
not
100%
sure
sure.
when was school doing that on the lower parking lot.
Yeah, they're on the old Park Valley now. I'm not sure who they went with.
I saw that today, that's cool.
Same kind of thing, though. That's always just been a chip and seal lot. I'm sure that needed more base work than the pool.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Let off a pothole in 10 days after the resurface.
Right, if they don't deal with it correctly. Any other questions on that part? I guess I did put the pool attendance on the next page. That's our year-to-date. We've had some pretty impressive days, especially early July. The only days we've been shut down are, well, and that's not even accurate, the 4th of July, we weren't really shut down. That was just a free swim day, so we didn't track it, and I can't read the day. Whatever day this was, that's the only days we've been closed.
I think that's your 4th of July, the one you just touched.
Oh.
Before that may have been when we had the incident and you couldn't open, maybe. Was
Oh,
it there days that weren't
yeah,
open?
yeah, the other incident.
No.
The
A cleaning incident?
The cleaning.
the members versus tickets.
Bio.
Is that passes versus?
This gives you, it's cash. The only thing that, it's cash and passes, and the green at the top is if somebody purchases a day pass with a credit card for that day.
Like they pre-purchase it and then they
Yeah.
scan it.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. That's why it was a little learning curve for me the first week or so there, trying to figure out how to make that magic happen. That's why there's no green until the first few days there, because I was trying to figure it out. But anyway, so we've sold a few of those, but the numbers have been good. We haven't quite hit 500, but been really close.
Couple close ones.
So,
It's awesome.
Do you have any feel how this compares to previous seasons when we've had a full season? Like go back to 19, 18?
significantly more.
Is it-
No, I was gonna say, just looking at the chart without reading the numbers, like
It's,
probably twice as many.
I'd say at least. I'd have to pull up.
I'd be curious to see that comparison sometime, just even if it's the end of the season total, just
I'll pull up some of those old files, but
to
I
prove
mean, it's kind of hard.
everything.
I could ask Midwest Pool Management, but the last time it was COVID time, and
They
that
had
doesn't really
really
count,
normal
so.
season.
Yeah.
Right. So,
Okay.
that is all I had.
Any questions for Steve on Parker Pool updates at this point?
On the pool, are they going to landscape that out front, or is that? on the
Yeah, that's
list?
part of the punch
Okay.
list. It's not really punch list, that's still part of the, base bid stuff, but they're waiting on, black dirt. And now probably black dirt and let it get a little cooler at this point, but, so, yeah, there's plan on sod out front and seed around, even maybe sod up like 6 to 8 feet off of the concrete, and then seed the rest of that perimeter.
One more on the pool rentals. Did we get any of that lined out or changed on Robbie's, discussion last meeting for the upper deck
With the,
rentals?
well, we're still in discussion with the Midwest Pool on that, and I think that's gonna be, what we wanna do is have pool parties and stuff up there, or like birthday parties and stuff.
Right.
But it's just been, no, we haven't yet. So
Okay.
it's probably, at this stage in the game, it's probably gonna, I feel like this first year, there's a lot of, learning how everything works and how we're gonna do gate and how we're gonna take care of everything. I feel like this, coming into this next year,
Be more prepared.
we'll be more prepared, we'll know how to run this facility better, and then we can start breaking out the bells and whistles.
Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't here last meeting to discuss that. I thought that was a great suggestion. And I would say that having that available would have been the difference between, we had my daughter's birthday in the park at one of the shelters. That would have been the difference between having the whole thing in the pool facility versus outside and then come in later.
And I feel like that will be something that we offer in the future, but just didn't quite make it happen this year, unfortunately. But it was a good idea, and I still think we need a tiki bar, but.
I agree.
Did we get any of those chairs in there?
Yeah, the way the order is going, they'll be here about the last day.
Okay. It'll be a great last day.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, I ordered them like the day after the last meeting, and I emailed that they're on back order, and so.
Plenty of time, lead time for next season.
I don't know if I discussed, Murmur, our insurance company, visited us. Did I report that last meeting? Okay, no, I don't think I did. We had really good review from Murmur came, and the only thing they recommended we change was covering the starting blocks, which we did, and,
Zach, the fire extinguisher.
oh yeah, fire extinguisher. And we just went and got a fire extinguisher and put it in, and so Murmur was pleased, and, that's who insures us, so.
All right, thank you, Steve. Moving on, we've got nothing listed under unfinished business, so we'll skip ahead to new business. The Slidewell at Cameron Aquatic Center report. Andy, are you still on?
I might have to, I just want to show you this video, and then we'll get Andy on here. I think I'll have to stop sharing to make that fly. Unless, Andy, can you hear us?
I sure can.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know, can you see my screen?
Oh, yeah, I can.
Okay, good. Okay. Well, I'm just gonna say, this is the video of the day, Splashtastic came and reevaluated our slide. That's the day we ultimately decided we were gonna go from 300 pounds to 200 pounds and get additional signage at the top and the bottom on how it's supposed to look when you go down the slide. And discussed training piece that the staff at the top of the slide needs to discuss this with whoever's going down, how it's supposed to look. And if you do all those things, then it'll come out looking like this. Here we go. That kid's about 180 pounds. So, and I'm sure if they chose to go down and go farther, they probably could. But if you do everything the way it's recommended to do, that's the outcome. And they did this. That was their favorite day of work this summer. They spent a solid hour going up and down the slide. So, here we go. Andy, you want to speak on this a little bit?
Sure. Just so everybody understands, I guess I only have one remark, really, and you guys can ask me whatever questions you have. I guess I'd like to make sure everybody understands the design process that goes into these water slides. That's a very specialized bit of work to design the ride path. It involves some pretty sophisticated software that deals with the physics associated with the size of person and the geometry of the slide and the momentum and force that they carry, and not that it involves many G-forces on the speed slide, but some of those larger slides, they even have to concern themselves with protecting the rider from excessive G-forces, like you'd get in a jet fighter or something. But in this case, this thing was designed by the actual manufacturer of the water slide, and I can't speak to the particulars of this slide. I just know that generally their process is for every new slide design they have, whether this is a new slide or not. My guess is that this is probably a slide that they've designed and used on multiple jobs, but I'm not the one to say that. That'd be a question to ask them. But they would design this thing and determine even the deceleration requirements at the end of the slide. So how deep does the water need to be, and how far in front of the slide exit does the water need to extend before you get to a wall, or in this case, a set of stairs where you walk out. And the plunge pool geometry, and that's the area that you see the fellow standing in the water at the end of that, standing in the water on the screen there, that's called the plunge pool. And the geometry of that was defined by the manufacturer of the slide. So the slide, the plunge pool, the pool itself is our responsibility. We are the overseeing designer, but we on much of this specialty equipment, we rely on others and their engineering to provide us with equipment that's going to be safe to the public.
Just to clarify, Andy, you said that the entire geometry of that plunge pool was provided by the slide manufacturer?
Well, specifically what they provide to us is a clear zone either side of the center line of the exit. So you have that flume that comes down, you've got a center line on that, and they define how many feet to the left and to the right that they want a clear zone of at least a certain depth of water, which is nominally, on most of these slides, it's about 3'6" of water. And then they also define how far out in front of the slide you need that free zone of a minimum depth of water before you have any sort of obstruction, such as the staircase climbing out.
Okay. One question I have, Steve, you had made the comment, and I think I heard it in the audio on the video itself, that if a person follows the recommendations and come out properly, this is what it's supposed to look like. I guess I don't know offhand what that body position exactly looks like, just how strict it has to be, and what happens if a person isn't exact.
There is signage there. It's basically arms crossed, feet crossed, and just straight in. If you lift your feet, they will tend to skid more. If you point your toes, they'll tend to dive. But either way, this same kid, he tried to go as far as he could. He lifted up and he got almost to the stairs by lifting his feet. But at the same time, he lotioned up and threw his body down there as hard and fast as he could, and he did get quite a ways over there. But at the same time, he came to rest at the base of the stairs. So, I mean, and that's him working to get as far as he could. And he's a strong 170-pound football playing kid. So I don't know.
Well, the main idea is to drop your heels, really create golf, and faculty years going all the way to the end of those real tall ones, all the way to the end, because if you pick your feet up, you just glide right across. I've got all the way to the end, but some of the big ones have went a while, and so gravity works.
Yeah.
You can also stop and lower your feet.
I mean, you can't control how everybody's gonna go down that slide, it's a problem, and if somebody goes down it wrong, I mean,
Well,
what's gonna happen?
even when they were trying to go down it wrong, like I said, this kid's a big, strong kid, and he didn't get to the end of the stairs hard enough to get injured. I mean, he came to rest, he got there, but he at that point, he slowed down enough, he basically hit the stair and kind of stood himself up, and it wasn't a major, I mean, he didn't get there with enough force to get injured.
Right. I just want kids.
I mean, Chrissy, Brandon, we haven't have we had any reports of major injury on this slide?
Not since that.
And that wasn't really a major injury, it was just somebody had gone too far, and that's when we said we need.
That's when we brought them back and made the changes. So, I mean, it's one of those things, we've had one reported injury. So, I mean, we can definitely try to reevaluate it if that's what the park board wants to do.
I think over time that slide's gonna lose some of being that slick or that fast as well, even if it's wax. It's gonna lose unless we cover it every year.
I mean, I guess you gotta figure, is it truly unsafe? I mean, like I don't know, that video you talked about, in like the playground world, talked about elements of risk, and that's how kids develop by doing things that are a little bit risky, but not where they're gonna get necessarily injured. But that's how development, and I know this is a little bit different, but it also needs to be fun. I mean, if it's not fun, then they're not gonna wanna do it. So,
I would think that the actions that have been taken are sufficient for the time being.
Yeah, I don't know that I have anything that I would like to see be done immediately. Anybody else have thoughts?
I believe in the test and doing that, that's what.
I just wanna make sure it's 100% safe. I mean, I've watched a lot of different kids go down it, and when they come down, I mean, I've seen kids come across so far, and they flip over forwards, and, you know, different things like that when I've been up there, and just, I don't know if it's going down incorrectly, but I also don't like limiting the people that can use it either. I mean, I went down it twice, I'm over 200 pounds, and that was before the 200 pound rule. That was before you guys made that rule.
oh,
So,
I mean, that's the thing. I mean, there's lots of things that, I feel like if everybody, Lampreneerson and Splashtastic and Carruthers and Midwest Pool Management, they're all, that's what they do is aquatics. If they think it's within the realm of safety, that they're comfortable to sign off on it, then it'd be one thing if we had a laundry list of injuries off of this, but we don't. We don't have a laundry list of injuries. So, I mean, we can stand here all day and talk about things that might happen. I mean, kids could fall off the playground every day, they might get hurt, or, you know. But we're here to provide, you know, which we did, provide a great facility that's fun and, in my opinion, safe. I wouldn't hesitate to send any of my kids down there. So, but
My concern is just that if safe use of the slide requires a strict body position, like my kids are 6 and 7 and just barely tall enough to go down it. I do not have any faith whatsoever that they would get to the bottom and be able to control their body position when they're scared the daylights out of them for going down that slide. So that's my concern, is that the younger kids or the thrill seeker people will not adhere, not eat, whether that's a conscious decision or not, that they would not adhere to the strict body position and in turn make it unsafe.
A lot of these slides I've seen have like you stay in the slide, like when you get out, like these speed slides and stuff that I've noticed. I mean, so this one's a little bit different than most of them I've seen like that. So, and I don't know, design wise, I guess, so I don't know who the manufacturer was or who, you know.
It's Splashtastic, right, Andy? And that's Splashtacular, maybe Splashtacular. The manufacturer. Yeah.
Yes, they are, yes.
Yeah, that's the manufacturer. Well, and, you know, I don't know, I just wanted to, I know there's a lot of discussion going around about it, and nothing needs to happen tonight, in my opinion, we just.
I don't know that I would say that I'm comfortable that the issue is completely put to rest, but I agree, I don't think there's anything that requires immediate urgent action. I mean, steps have already been taken.
The manufacturer did say at the end of the season, they'll come back and put a pad on the floor. And maybe at that point, before we sign off on everything on the punch list, we'll look it over one more time, see if there's any other, maybe we can pad the handrails or pad the stairway to some degree. I don't know what's appropriate exactly, but that's something we can discuss, you know, when we get to that point before we completely take over. Before we sign off on anything.
Whole floor of it, or?
No, just in that one's right where you'd come out.
Oh, okay.
Potential contact zone.
Mm-hmm.
Andy, do you have an easily accessible document that gives those specifications you were talking about on the exit dimensions that you could send out?
I'm sorry, you're gonna have to repeat that, I didn't quite catch all of it.
Do you have a document somewhere that you could forward along that shows those exit dimensions provided by Splashtastic or whichever one it was, Splashtastic, Splashtacular? Could you forward those dimensions?
Yeah, I'm sure we do, yeah.
Okay, yeah, if you send those to Steve Yard, he can forward them along. I appreciate that.
And keep in mind, you guys also in that sync drive have the whole pool, access to the whole pool plan. It has, yes.
I was assuming those dimensions wouldn't have been up there. Do you think it is up there?
It is, yeah, it's all there. All
the dimensions of the plunge pool will be on there.
Yeah.
But the manufacturer recommendations, I didn't assume would be on there.
if not any.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Andy or anything, or me, or at what school?
Zach?
All right, thank you, Andy.
All right, you're welcome. Have a nice evening, guys.
Moving on to Cameron Community Park, Old Somerville.
I'm gonna invite Nick Naya to this is, Nick, what's your exact title of this project? Project manager, you know,
I was gonna say, I appreciate the opportunity to work on this project, and it's been, so far it's been a challenge with the rain, but I mean, moving 100,000 cubic yards of dirt is a pretty substantial task, especially when it rains seems like every couple of days, but we're moving along, I think, pretty well. We're to the point now where we've got most of our black dirt down, And so we're almost completely to grade, with the exception of some laser grading and fine tuning, and so we'll be starting concrete work next week, weather permitting. We'll start the soccer fields, and we'll get the sidewalk going into those, and then we'll move into the apron around the ball field, and we should be going with fencing next week, so it's gonna start looking like a ballpark pretty soon.
It's already starting to look like a ballpark.
Yeah, it's looking pretty good. I think I've got asphalt, scheduled to start work in the second week of August, so that's coming up. They're gonna start putting the road in and the parking lot. So I think if we could just get at least a couple straight weeks where we don't get rain, we'd be in pretty good shape here by the end of August.
When did you say the asphalt for the entrance road is going in?
Second week of August.
Second week of August. The reason I asked, I was out to take a look, a few days ago, and there's quite a few trees along there that it would be good to have those removed. And I'm thinking it would make sense to get somebody in there to get those out before the brand new asphalt. So I may coordinate through Steve and see if we can get somebody in there ahead of that going in.
Yeah, we could definitely accommodate you guys on that. Yeah, I'll work that out with Steve, and he can let me know.
And, I mean, my assumption would be as long as you're not actively working on that road, that you
Yeah,
get somebody in there to get those
yeah.
trees out.
Yeah, and even if we had to, worst case, if we had to push it back a week, I don't think it would kill us to push the asphalt guys back a week. But I'm sure it wouldn't kill them either, because they're probably way behind too with all the rain. Everybody seems to be. And the roofs, I think they're wrapping up the roof on the concession building, so that ought to start coming together pretty soon. It's got probably maybe another week, and then that'll be done on the roof on it, and we'll start working on I think the next step there is we're gonna be starting to put in some of the stainless steel. There's a lot of stainless steel countertops, so we're putting doors on today because we want to be able to lock the building up before we start putting wiring and plumbing and, things like that people could vandalize. So I think by the end of tomorrow, we'll be able to lock the building up and start working on some of that stuff.
I had a question on the colors, and I know I've brought this up probably a couple times, so everybody has probably already heard this, but on the roof color, the swatches that we got from Vireo, their sample appears to be like a forest green. The color that's going on the roof is a patina green, and the colors for the dugouts is actually patina green, which is much lighter.
Yeah, so the color selection, the roof colors, there's two different manufacturers, first of all. So, the manufacturer for the roof is Barrage.
Right.
And the metal for I'd have to look, I can't remember offhand who, we buy those from, Sports Unlimited, and that's kind of a package deal, those dugouts. It's basically a kit.
Right.
And so there's two different manufacturers there, so I don't know that they're gonna be identical. But all the colors were submitted to Vireo, and it was my understanding, talking to Larry with Vireo, that when early on Drew had tasked the design team with making all the color selections, and so they proceeded to do so.
Yeah, we have the color selections, and that's what I'm saying, the sample that we have, like, that Larry sent Matt, appears to be like a forest green. And the color that's going up is more of like a really, really light turquoise of some type.
Kind of like Robbie's shirt.
Well, definitely lighter.
So, I have this.
Right here, I have them if you need to see them.
Okay. I'll pull it up my file here. I have a.
This is sample, and that's the colors. That's the color that's going on.
So, I have,
I just didn't know something changed or somebody
no.
authorized to change their something.
20, let's see. Kind of put me on the spot here.
No, that's all right.
I'm pulling up what I can here. As far as I know, the color that is going on there is what we submitted on. So I don't know if somebody gave
I
you-
have all three of them right here from all of them.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure what you have.
Yeah, I think the question at play there is what color was submitted
Right.
by everybody all along.
That's a sample through Verio. And that's, this is Heritage's color swatch. And then this is the color that's going on, Patina green.
And that's what I thought we had noted.
Patina green is on the dugout rust, and it's a different manufacturer, a different product, but it's a totally different color.
As far as I know, I mean, I can check with Stephen Shushki, who's putting that roof on.
Right, 'cause they had two pieces of metal on
Yeah, that's, we went and looked
just
at
a
it.
couple days ago.
Okay, yeah, I can check, but it would be very surprising to me that they would put on anything other than what they submitted. I mean, they do, you know, they've been doing this for a long time, and I've never had any issues with them on, that, I mean, that would be a pretty big mistake. I'm trying to find my color submittals.
Just at first glance, it didn't seem like a very complimentary color, so then we got the color swatches and samples from Verio. Because that wasn't something that we had any input on,
Yeah,
so.
no, yeah, that was kind of something that Drew
Right.
had tasked them with. You know, I'll dig into it. I would find it hard to believe that they would have made, that's a pretty big mistake.
Right. One other one while we're on color.
Okay.
Sorry, let me put you on the spot like this, but, all of the metal and rafters and everything, they were all painted with like a PPG color that's kind of more of like a bluish gray, I would
I
call
think
it.
it's called Cyberspace is the color name.
The color in the bid package shows a web gray, Sherwin-Williams 7605, it's a much lighter gray.
Yeah, we were asked to change that.
You were?
Yeah.
In our submittals,
Okay.
the return submittals came back by the architect, SSF Architects. That's who Verio hired to do the concession building, and so when they returned the submittal, they sent back, to use, the cyberspace. Originally, the soffit was supposed to be a metal soffit down the sides, but then when we added the canopy, the designer thought it would be nice to go ahead, since both ends were gonna be, that cedar, or, you know, that wood look, that he thought it would be nice to go ahead and continue that down the soffits on both sides. And so when he did that, he removed, originally that was supposed to be a metal fascia that came down and returned to the metal soffit. And all that was supposed to match the roof color. And so then when they changed that, then they decided that it would look better to make the rafters match the steel, so that you didn't have so many different colors going on there. And so that's when the submittals were returned back to say use the cyberspace color that we used on the steel to match the wood.
Even though like the plan originally called for the web gray on the steel?
Yeah, even though, yeah, it was changed in the submittal process. Yeah, so we submitted, paint samples on, we submitted paint drawdowns on like 4 different ones, on 331, 4.5, 412, and 427. And then again on 415, and those were returned to us, with notes saying use that color, so.
Can you send that?
Yeah, and then on top of that, we would have follow-up conversation with the design team, a conference call between myself and the painter to confirm that that is what they want to do, so.
So will the doors, what color are the doors? Are they still gonna be the gray or are they gonna match like?
Yeah, that's what they're gonna do.
Because that was the same color as the rest of the metal was supposed to be, that gray.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the doors will be the same color as well, yeah, that'll be that cyberspace color. Everything on the outside basically went to that color.
And did somebody from the city sign off on that or was that just?
No.
No.
No, when Drew set this up with Vireo, he tasked them with color selections, he tasked the design team with the color selections.
So did Larry didn't mention any of that?
So Larry has that hired out to, in my conversation with Larry, he has anything concerning the concession building is in SFS hands, and they're I think they have interior designers.
Yeah, I asked along the way who selected the colors, and he just said the design team.
Yeah,
He didn't
that's
specify.
I mean,
internal.
it would ultimately have fallen on someone at SFS, one of their interior designers that would have probably made the final selection on that. But that was mostly before I got involved, other than this change to go to change all the rafters to the cyberspace, because originally the rafters would have all been green as well. They would have matched the roof, that was the original design.
Right.
So.
Would you also follow up, on the roof color and
Yeah.
figure it out? You don't have to do it right this second, but you can follow up later and just verify.
Yeah, I could probably add more information. I have it all. There's just so much here to dig through right now, so
Okay.
to find out where that final color selection came from.
Okay.
And I do know that Larry's had mentioned this in one of our progress meetings, because I think you guys raised concern with the metal building being completely different and kind of standing out. And I think that was an intentional thing because they wanted it to look like a maintenance building. They didn't want it to look like a park building. And he said that's kind of typical when they design parks, that if they have a maintenance structure or something that's not for public use, they try to make it stand out as such, so that it doesn't draw people to it, and that's their logic. And he said as you build onto this park, then their vision would be to make all of the public structures look similar, so that in the grand scheme of the whole entire project, you would have all these buildings that are intended for public use that would have a similar appearance, and then anything that you would use for maintenance or that you wouldn't really want to draw the public to would kind of have this more plain, kind of standout look, and that's how he explained that to me, so.
Yeah,
a little conversation about it.
Like the color sample sheet, like the photo that Larry had sent to me, it looked like everything was slightly different but all complementary.
Yeah.
And I agree with Chris, the sample that was submitted there, at least that was sent to us, is very, very different than the actual color that's going on the roof.
Okay, well, I'll look at it.
And just somewhere along the way, wires got crossed or a change got submitted, one of the two.
Yeah, something, yeah. I would say there's probably some kind of an explanation. I'll dig into it. Anything else?
We still on track to have sod installed this fall to be ready to play ball in the spring?
We're looking at it, yeah, I mean, right now, we're hoping we can, the biggest hangup we're running into is the transformer. So, but I think we've come up with a solution where we're gonna run some temporary power to get our irrigation going this fall, or early fall, so we can get the sod in. That'll be the key to, we don't wanna be able to get the sod in this fall. Be the key, I think, to be able to get baseball in there in the spring. I mean, yeah, right now, it's looking good.
Good.
Yeah. Who was that thing?
Any other?
Well, we were out there doing some drone work the other day. The guys doing the electrician, they said that some of the projects they've been on, have you had any concerns on the sod backup, like shortages anywhere around here? Because they mentioned that when we were out there, and I was like, I've been trying to get sod all spring, I just got it like the first part of July. And because they couldn't cut all spring, so I didn't know if you.
No, I haven't heard it. I haven't heard of any concerns. Or Pine Valley on Savannah is doing all the sod and seeding, and I've had several conversations with him about the project recently, and he hasn't mentioned anything to me. So
That's good.
Yeah. Did you want to touch on curbing in the fields at all, or? Okay.
Anything else for Nick?
I think that's it. Thank you for what you're doing out there. It's looking
Thank
really
you.
good. If you could get back to us on that stuff, that'd be great.
yeah, I will.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Steve, do you have anything else on the park?
No, I think he pretty well touched on everything park related, or new park related.
Oh, I had one more quick question. Light testing, do you know? When we were out there, he said they were gonna be testing the lights like in a couple weeks, possibly.
Tested the Lascar lights?
Yeah.
I don't know how they look, they don't have any power, there's no.
Okay. Well, they told us, and I was like, if you knew a date or when they were gonna do it, let us know, because I might go out there.
They probably have a mile of wire installed before they're even able to test that, so they do that 2 weeks.
Okay. I just thought I'd ask, because that's what they told us. I was like,
I don't know that
Until
happens.
the transformers in, to the temporary power.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
All right. Moving on to power lines.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Every day, we hear something about a supply chain issue, but I've never heard about sod being delayed, so that's a new one that we'll have to listen to. But again, never ceases to amaze what there's a delay on these days. So, again, just to give you a little background on, I know the subject of the transmission line that runs through the park has been an issue here lately, and so just to give you a little background on that. When they're originally going through the initial park layout and stuff, city staff, we kind of looked at the layout, looked at the transmission line, looked at kind of what it would take to move it and stuff, and so the decision was to kind of design the park around the existing transmission line. The utility department, we agreed to lower the poles as we changed the grade and make sure everything was safe and met our standards and was somewhat out of the way there. So. Again, that was a decision that staff looked at in the beginning. Like I said, in order to put that section of underground or put that section of overhead underground, you'd be looking at several hundred thousands of dollars to do that. Some of our last estimates on our recent projects, we'd be looking somewhere in the neighborhood of between $300 and $400 per foot to do that. And the other issue, if that was something that we wanted to take on right now, again, going back to the supply chain issue, a lot of the switch gears, wire, and a lot of the material that we would need, we are at least a year out on that stuff. But like I said, we did look at other options, and like I said, Matt and I had a little conversation here this week, and if you wanted to reroute, because it was brought up that maybe this might hinder the park from future grant applications, as being a new requirement for LWCF grants. So if that was the case, we could look to do something else. If you went to reroute the power line around the park while going overhead would be cheaper, you'd be talking probably $250,000 for that. But then you'd have the additional cost of bringing the power to what you've now constructed for the power inside the park and getting it to your existing transformers that are being set with the project. So you'd almost be 6 in one, half a dozen in the other. You'd be pretty close to the same cost for doing that. So, but like I said, that's something we looked at. There really wasn't a huge benefit or any benefit to the utilities department to do this. So again, we weren't really on board with wanting to put it underground. So, but like I said, just wanted to give you kind of a background as to how we got to where we are today.
And one additional background item I would point out, when Zach and I talked earlier this week, it sounds like when utilities did their initial review was prior to us having picked up the alternative for the soccer field lights. So, and that's really what started this whole conversation again, was the soccer lights got planned in the same location as the transmission line, and the solution ended up being move the soccer lights back away from the field and have the transmission line between the lights and the soccer field. So certainly a less than ideal setup. So that's how this conversation got started again. And I talked to Zach, and asked the question, what would it take to get those underground? And quite a lot of money.
Yeah, and like I say, it would be a lot of money to do that. But again, like I said, we don't want to hinder the park from future grant applications or the ability to obtain grants. And so like I said, that would we don't want to do that. So if like I said, if that maybe that's a possibility for future grants to do that. That's something we could definitely look at and keep pursuing. We have spoke to our engineer, kind of giving them the heads up that, hey, this might be something we've been looking at. We've talked to our contractor, we've talked to suppliers, again, just trying to get an idea of, like I said, what this would take, but it would be a rather large undertaking at this point.
What's already been spent on it?
We've already lowered the pole, so we've spent we haven't got the final bill on that, but we've spent quite a bit of money on that. We've done some additional grade work as well with CP Excavating. I'm not sure how much the electrical's been put in on the park side, on their side of the transformer. But
It's all right.
you're over $100,000 already, I'm sure.
We're beyond that. I hate to interject. But beyond that, I think the biggest concern would be probably the time, because right now, as it sits, we're struggling to get even the transformers to power the park. That's why I kind of chuckled when you said power the lights, because there's not currently a transformer. And that's where we're actually gonna have to extend, and I don't know if everybody was aware that we're looking at a time extension, because we can't get transformers until mid-October. So we're gonna have some standard voltage, 110 power to power up our irrigation, but we won't be able to power any of the lighting until probably mid-October. And so just with that in mind, with all the equipment that he would have to lower this, I would bet that the design alone, you'd probably be a year out, and then probably another year to get the equipment. Do you think that that's probably accurate?
Yeah, that's what, like I said, that's what, again, just talking to a couple of our suppliers, like I said, we know the switch gear, we may get the wire, but yeah, switch gear, we're a year out, easy on that. And like I said, there would be a little bit of time for design and things, but
I had conversations, when they were really killing my plan when this issue came about. It was really killing me, because I had this whole game plan of driving everybody to get the soccer fields done, before we fell out of the planting season, because I really wanted to have the soccer fields and that whole side of the park done before the heat set in, which I think at some point was possible, but then we started running into issues here with this conflict, and I had conversations with Musco, with their engineers, and they have equipment, they have some pretty sophisticated software that allows them to kind of pinpoint where the light, you know, if there's gonna be dark spots or dim spots, and they had no concerns about the lighting where being moved back there.
Yeah, they've guaranteed Kindle Power performance
Yeah.
across the field, so my concern with the lights moving back is not lighting performance, it's the aesthetic of having a power line between the lights and the field.
Yeah.
And then, like Zach mentioned a couple times, the LWCF grants, that is a new requirement that all utilities have to be underground.
And just, you know, too, something to think about is I think some of the issues with we've ran into other, you know, we've had several conflicts with Musco stuff and the park stuff, like these underground utilities and things, we're working through it. And this is one that you guys noticed because it's a bigger one, but a lot of it stems because the city kept Musco as a contractor, as an independent, or, you know, they work for the city, and so that took them away from Virio's design. So had they been under Virio's umbrella, then they would have done, you know, they would have ran conflicts in their software to look for all this stuff ahead of time, and that's kind of why it saved the city a lot of money, I think, probably, but this is some of the fallout, you know, you have things, we did one of their poles landed on our water line, we had to, you know, that, at no cost to the city, Musco came in and made that repair on their dime, but, you know, it's just stuff like that we're working through, but, you know, and this is just kind of part of that fallout, I think, of saving that piece out and then introducing it later, so.
Yeah, so Zach and I talked about this earlier this week, but I don't see any scenario with where we're at right now that we would attempt to make that change to power lines as part of this contract. It would have to be a future project if we did decide to do it.
Yeah, and like I said, we'll keep this on our radar, and like I said, if you know, like I said, right now it's currently a two-way feed. Like I said, if things change and our distribution system changes and maybe an opportunity arises in the future, like I said, we'll keep this in mind. Like I said, we'll keep our engineers, keep this on their list of something that might be coming up. So if there is a grant opportunity, we have someone with short notice, we can get them on board and take care of something.
As far as like going around the park, what would that look like? Like east side, west side, what, is a good scenario?
I guess my
If-
initial thought would be on the east side.
By the interstate.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I mean, that's just.
I was
initial
curious, I didn't know
back of the-
where you had to get to with it, or go around to that,
Yeah.
or what.
Yeah. And like I said, while it would be cheaper to go overhead, like I said, then you still gotta get power back to where your transformers, when we get them, where they're gonna sit.
Right.
So.
I was gonna ask, you mentioned transformers, I can't remember what city, I was talking to somebody working, I can't remember what it was, but they have a project, they're like a year and a half out.
Yeah.
Transformers.
Yeah.
Before they can complete their project, and so October, I mean, obviously we probably ordered them a while ago, or?
Yeah, longer.
Okay.
Yeah,
That seems to be a pretty big problem.
Like I said, it's mind-boggling, some of the things, some of the lead times we have on stuff, and like I said, now we ordered a roll of wire back in January, still haven't got it, and we have no answers to when we're going to get it. But yeah, transformers are a hot commodity. you know, like I said, and that's what I think the electricians talk to our electric guys, I think we're gonna run some temporary power. You know, like I said, we still have some of those, and we can get some temporary power and stuff like that, but, yeah, it's tough.
And the underground, so I mean, it's obviously I should have been planning probably like a year or two ago, if that was gonna happen, like as an alternate, but I don't think that was ever brought to our attention at all to even think about
Yeah.
that. So that's not your fault.
Well, no, I mean, we discussed it, like I said, at the staff level, and we looked at it, and like I said, even then, we knew it was gonna be pretty costly.
But it could have been something that we decided as an alternate, like instead of soccer field lights or something, we
Sure.
said, hey, let's do this and get it done with, and we'll put lights in next time we put lights on the other fields.
And like I said, and like Matt had mentioned, when we were reviewing that, there weren't lights on the soccer field. You know,
Right.
so, but,
Right.
you know, so, but.
Right.
Anything else for Zach? Thank you, Zach.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Moving on down the list, one more item on new business, grand opening, Eagle Lake Primitive Hiking Trail.
We have been tasked to move forward on trying to open this primitive hiking trail around Eagle Lake, which is reservoir number 3. Some of the park staff has been out there this summer. Matt volunteered a lot of his time to kind of blaze kind of get a path down, kind of get it designed, and we've been trying to kind of get it open. And I think at this point, we would like to try to do an opening just to get it where people can use it. I know there's discussion about bridges and adding things like that as we move forward. But it's my recommendation at this point to try to open this trail as is this summer, so we can have one complete looped trail. This page shows our EMS protocols if there is an accident, injury, and how to access the different points on this trail. If the park board would like to table this and discuss it more and go into more detail about what we would like to do to fund bridges or whatever the park board would like to do, we could definitely table it and look for another time to open it at a later date.
So a little bit of background on this project. December of, I believe it was 2020, Zach, you remember? It was the week after we opened the fishing shelter at Sunrise Lake. I sat down with Zach and Steve and asked some questions about plans out there, and a hiking trail around Eagle Lake was brought up. I volunteered at the time to mark a route around the lake, which I did, and then that turned into, in order for anybody to be able to get through it without crawling the whole way, I needed to cut enough brush to be able to get access through it, and then that turned into, well, I've gone this far, I might as well clear some more brush and chainsaw off all the trees and take my brush saw the whole way around. And basically, I've been working on this for a year and a half, and have got a good start to a trail. Steve mentioned bridges a few times. There's multiple places that I would like to see footbridges out there. The ones that to me are dangerous without them are the spillways at both ends of the lake. At the south end, you've got spillways from both Century and Sunrise Lakes, and at the north end, you've got the spillway ditch coming out of Eagle Lake. That one is the most difficult. It's going to have to be about 120-foot span, depending how we go about it. Foot traffic right now would have to go down a fairly steep embankment and across boulder-sized rubble, which I personally don't think is a good idea send them across as is.
Matt, versus Boulder side trouble up?
In the spillway ditch, in the, where you have the trailhead number 1 mark, and down the ditch.
Right now, the plan that,
At the other end of the lake.
on this side?
Yeah.
Well, we-
Yeah, where the
we
trail's
crossed it
marked right
there.
now.
We never saw any Boulder size.
Where the trail's marked right now is the latest place that I had flagged it. You know, I mean, there's giant chunks in there, the whole way. But that location was flagged with the expectation of an elevated walkway going across. So, like on that specific spot, here a couple months ago, I talked with Zach about the practicality of setting piers, setting posts in that rubble, whether that was something that could be done or not. My specific question was if you know, since utilities, big power pole poles, you know, if he thought that their equipment would be able to set, whether it's power poles or smaller poles, in through that substrate to where we could build an elevated walkway. I mean, we've talked about $150,000 bridges going across the spillway itself, all the way down to, well, we can get across it, it's not ideal, but I found routes to do with foot traffic. If we're not going to do a bridge there, I would take one of the other alternatives and go down and across the low water crossing to the west of the Boy Scout building. That was my fallback for no bridge at all. So all that said, like the last active work I had done on it was April, May, in that time. I've just been too terribly busy to work too much more on it this summer. I wasn't aware that the staff had been out there working on it, or that there was an immediate urgent push to get it open. So my preference would be, having been the whole way, I've got a long list of projects that still need done. What I was hoping to do was figure out what the plan exactly is on the footbridges, and I've been working on designs and options for all of that. And then I wanted to organize a community volunteer day to get people out to where it's not just the trail that the city provides, but it's a community event. And do things like remove old fences, pick up trash. There's some places that the trail needs leveled out, and pruning back brush. All of the above are, you know, like I said, I've got a long list. I've been around it just for that purpose of identifying these are the projects that still need done. So,
What's the total distance?
as that's marked right there, 4.05 miles.
So this is just a rough trail as far as.
It's a dirt trail.
Yeah, it's just a natural surface trail. Imagine walking the whole way on a deer trail, that's about what it would be.
Well, the reason I ask is that if it's open, you mark it that it's a trail that just foot traffic. You mark that it has risks, hazards, whatever the city has to do, and actually people can walk it to help tramp it down even more. I mean, anytime you go hiking in the mountains, that's what it is.
So the more foot traffic's there, the more it will go to keeping it open.
Right, so even though you've got a list of things you'd like to see done, those projects could be done at some point, but.
Well, several of them are
walking.
safety related, fence wire going across a trail, side slopes that need cut down. Things that if we start putting a lot of foot traffic on it before they're done, like the side slope issues, for example, those type of things will end up causing more erosion problems than potential for benefit. So yeah, my preference would be to hold off, and my opinion is we need to figure out the answer on the footbridges, especially over the spillways, because to me it's not a safe crossing. Down at the south end, those spillways right now, where it kind of makes the stair, it's right there where it kind of makes that stair step.
We don't actually cross the spillway here
you don't cross the sunrise, you do cross the century, and when I laid out this mark, about 2 weeks later was one of those giant rains, and it turned my potentially safe crossing into a 3-foot cliff you had to jump down. So my preference would be to see this held off for a public opening and allow us to get a little farther into the project, instead of, I feel like it's premature to push the opening right now.
Our staff has been around it several times, and you're right, there is some cross slope as far as it being unsafe. I would, if I felt it was unsafe, I wouldn't send our staff to be out on it. Neil was out on it just today, actually. He was like, if it rains real hard, you don't want to be on it, because, I mean,
if there's overflow in any of the spillways,
but that's where it is a primitive trail. It is a natural experience. If we want to go through and make it like the 88 trail, then we can do that. But I guess it is my vision that if it's going to be more primitive, more rustic, if it's going to be like walking the deer trail or something like that, that it's going to have some cross slope. It's going to have some obstacles to, mild obstacles to overcome. Maybe I'm just confused on what the expectation was. I get direction from lots of folks, and so I guess I just confused on, it was directed to me to let's get this thing open, so that's what we've been trying to do. We can definitely wait and get direction from more people on how to do it.
It's a primitive trail, I've been on some pretty bad trails.
Well, like walls, like similar walls,
As it is right now, I cleared the whole thing just with an handheld brush saw, so there's 4 and 6 inch stumps with, and again, I haven't been out there since city staff's been doing work. But as of early June, there was 18 inch rocks coming off of some of them.
Could we put like a rigorous trail warning saying this is for?
That's the intent, is to sign it that it is, use at your own risk. It is primitive. It's not ADA compliant. There are going to be some rugged terrain that you will cross.
I just know from going on Wallace trails, like I wouldn't want to be on there either when it's raining.
Wallace trails are a giant boulevard compared to what this is right now.
Like I said, I haven't seen it, so I don't know.
I am not comfortable saying we're ready to open it, and like I said,
I would prefer to see it myself and then
Yeah,
defer to Matt. I mean, he's put 1.5 years of his time into it myself, and get our eyes on it and see what it looks like before turning everybody loose. I mean, if Matt hadn't been out there for a while either.
But the city has been working on it since Matt has been out there. I guess my first, I have 2 questions. One, who's pushing for this to be open? And then 2, if you haven't seen it, I mean, I'm not saying you're right or anybody's right, but if you have been out there since April and they've been out there, not they, but the city's been out there cleaning stuff up, some of your stuff on your list, you might not could be done already if they've been out there doing whatever it is.
and without knowing what all they've been working on out there, I mean, it's entirely possible.
Yeah, because this is kind of the first time we've heard about it, so to
Well, this has
open it
been
right away is.
How many years has this been kind of this rustic primitive trail has been at least a year.
December of 20 is when I offered to mark it out, and I've been working on it. I marked it that winter. My original hope was this past spring, while it was still cool, to have a volunteer day. But I ended up, again, just completely swamped through late winter and wasn't able to pull it together. So my next, and at least the current plan was this fall while it's cool. I'd rather not get people out there and we can volunteer when it's 100 degrees.
If it's so unsafe that we can't have people on it, I don't know if having a volunteer day is necessarily a good idea either. If it's not safe to be on it, then it's not safe.
Well, that's my opinion, is it's premature to look at a grand opening date right now.
many signs you put up, warning of dangers, there's always gonna be a lawsuit.
Who is pushing the openness? Is it city staff or who?
We've had push from council, to a degree, not push, but this was on their radar, things that were gonna happen, you know, so.
And I've been invited to a couple council meetings or committee meetings to talk about this project along the way. Council's aware that I've been working on it. I think that it's premature to look at a grand opening.
Is that something we vote on, a grand opening?
So I guess what's with this on the agenda, are you looking for?
This was put on here so we could set a date for a grand opening. It's my opinion that it's open, well enough to open to the public and then do these improvements as we go. You know, if we deem, we start getting complaints about things or, you know, I feel like people have been wanting this trail out here for a while, since 2020. And I don't want to wait any longer if it's not necessary. I feel like the footbridges and things like that would make great Eagle Scout projects that could happen as we go. The bridge, you know, that's a debatable thing. You know, I had a hip replacement and I got through there just fine. So I don't know. I guess if you go out there and you're not physically able to do these things, then I would recommend not doing them. But
Can we table it until next time, so we each get a picture again?
I would prefer to, just so I can go look at it too.
Please.
I don't know anything about it.
I was gonna say, I think there's members of this board that knew nothing about it.
No, I intentionally not publicized that I was doing this. I wanted the unveiling to be, we're ready, I mean, for the request for volunteers was going to be the announcement.
I think you would have an issue with volunteers that will see the project.
And
Because of insurance reasons.
I mean, we can use volunteers and just, there's no waiver they have to sign.
those were questions that I had posed and I hadn't yet got answers to. What does the volunteer day look like? What does the liability to me personally look like for having done all this? You know, these are questions that I asked and haven't yet got answers to.
We reached out to Myrma about you specifically. Hey, it was fine, you're coming through. You know, everything's fine.
Yeah, to me, this definitely feels like we want a deliverable when the product's not. I mean, I wish we weren't having this conversation right now, but we are. So, I mean, that's what it feels like is a rush to a deliverable. It's not yet there. So, Robbie, you had made a suggestion to table it. You want to make a motion to that effect?
Sure. I'll motion to table this. Do a motion. Sure, yeah.
You wanna make the motion to table the grand opening of Eagle Lake Primitive Hiking Trail.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to table Eagle Lake Primitive Hiking Trail for now.
Yeah, a motion and a second to table this conversation until next meeting. All in favor, please say
Well,
aye.
that topical discussion, would like to have a table till next meeting. Those of us that know that, how to go there.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's my discussion is that I don't know where the push is coming from currently, but if we need to discuss it more legitimately, so primitive trails may needs exactly.
Yeah, I'm gonna go walk it.
So I would say
I'm gonna need
open.
a waiver from you before you.
In my cover, the bridges or whatever.
I'm not working on it, I'm just walking it off.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Because it's not gonna, the way it won't being done for years with bridges and crossings.
Nice to have to get it all done, it's just,
Where's the money gonna come from the bill?
I'm working on that.
I guess that's kind of the problem, is it's really hard as staff to get projects done when I don't know who's making the decisions. I'll get, just like this. Matt Arndt is working on funding. Well, how am I supposed to, as staff, how am I supposed to know that Matt Arndt is working on funding?
There's definitely lapse in communication, whether it's intentional or not. I mean, there's lapse in communication here. Yeah,
Well,
the
there's
answer to that
six
is,
of us here that didn't even know about it.
yeah.
So, I'd like to go look at it first.
I know Matt went to council meetings, about funding and stuff, correct? So I mean, at least they were aware.
Previous fiscal years, council has allocated funding directly towards this project that has been reabsorbed at the end of fiscal years, so it's no longer obligated. In a previous fiscal year, they allocated $27,000, which in my current plans would more than cover all of the bridges we would need. So it would have to be a reallocation of funds from
You're
us.
assuming you're gonna give us money.
It would have to, funds would have to go to something.
Basically,
I've also had people in the community tell me that they're willing to put money towards it, so it's entire, I would not be a bit surprised if I talked to a few people who made those offers and that's covered completely.
But moving forward, it's really hard to make plans if we can't open this until Matt signs off on it. I don't know, I have to look at our budget, I just can't hope that we get money. Our council's already discussing the budget right now and cuts all over the place. And in my opinion, I would rather be able to open this without spending additional funds that we don't have, whether it be.
Let me ask you this, is the funds part of the, I guess, the new department or whatever it is, the reservoir water slash?
It was,
whatever it was.
and now it's been merged into one.
Okay.
So that, the reorganization to where reservoir recreations comes under our purview complicates this whole process. Because it had been separate when I was working on this, just on my own, this was a separate issue that would go directly to council. Now, it would have to come through us and potentially also to council. I mean, I don't know what that looks like. This is a change from what it's been the whole time.
Depending on how much money, if it was something that the park board wanted to fund, isolate.
we absolutely need to discuss that.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, right, yes, and that's why I'm here presenting this. Right.
When I say that I've been working on budget stuff, yes, instead of staff time doing this, it's been volunteer that I have been researching bridges and in all of this so that I could come forward and have this is our design, this is exactly what it's gonna cost, this is exactly what I'm asking for. So yes, it has all been that I've been doing. I mean, Steve, your role in overseeing this has been more recent than my last work on it. But up until, all of the communications, I've kept Zach and Steve Rasmussen in the loop on everything that I've been doing.
And Matt, if I just kind of interject a little bit here. Again, it is confusing because of the fact that this was a year ago the water department and now it's the park department, and so there's a whole financial aspect of it. But again, staff was going on the directive that we got coming from a council retreat where that was one of the goals listed was to develop the reservoir area. So that's why staff has been doing that, and that's why city management has been pushing it, because again, it was a directive we had that we were moving forward with. So that was why, that's where the push was coming from.
Good to know. I just think we should table it just so we have more information for everybody.
All right, so let's see, we've got a motion and a second. Did I hear an amendment to change the motion to include until next meeting?
Yes, because.
Yes.
Set a date next meeting.
All right.
Till next meeting.
So that was part of the original
Yes.
amendment, okay. All right, any additional discussion on tabling this discussion until the next meeting? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in favor, 1 opposed. Motion carries. All right, miscellaneous. I have one question. Where are we at on planning the year-round restrooms in 2021, I believe, LWCF grant?
We really haven't. Carmen, how we go financially on that?
I'm just in progress on plans. Has there been any motion on it in the last couple months? I think when you and I think Zach had a Zoom with Larry, that's the last communication I've heard, nothing since then.
I guess I just don't know where the funds are gonna come from to do our, that LWCF, we have to fund it and then we get reimbursed, but I guess I don't.
We getting our 8-cent sales tax beginning of fiscal year, or is that, when does that come in?
We'll be able to.
I do not know the time parameters of the grant as to when grant has to be, construction be completed.
We don't have a 2-year window since the time it was announced, so we still have like a year and a half to begin.
I know there is a small amount of revenue over expenses in the next year's budget, and unfortunately, I don't have any of those numbers in front of me, or the grant match numbers in front of me, to be able to tell you it's gonna cost X number of dollars, and you have Y number of dollars projected for it.
Yeah, I wasn't asking on the financial side, I was just wondering if if there was planning going on that I wasn't aware of, but it sounds like no, there's not. Okay.
Didn't we hire Mario to design that?
They have a design, there is a design.
Okay.
I guess we're just at a point where it's hard to move forward when we don't know how to fund it, I guess.
Can we get copies like just what the design looks like, or is there more than just one design?
So as of that meeting a few months ago, there was like a preliminary proposal and a budget for that proposal that was quite a bit higher than we had originally projected as part of the grant.
Like the restrooms alone were like $500,000. Like $300,000 for the restrooms alone.
I think it was closer to 475.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the problem, is yes, we have a design, but it's gonna cost a whole lot more than what I guess was initially anticipated. So, that's why it's kind of slowed down. For one, we're trying to get the first phase built and everything buttoned up on that, or at least moving on that, and then I guess we need to do a little bit more research on how to fund this second phase. So.
Anything else miscellaneous?
Thank you, Steve, for your article in the paper, explaining that.
Thank you.
One more, just to bring it up, while we're talking about grants, mid-August, LWCF opened up again for grants, so, for 2023.
Weren't we under something where someone's like helping us with that and share that for us?
Vireo. We hired, we have MOCAN facilitating our RTP grant, and we have Vireo facilitating our LWCF grant, so doing all the making sure we're staying on track and getting all our documentation done. We could hire them to write a grant proposal if we would like to. Once again, we fall back into the same.
We tried for the playground this last spring or whatever that was, and I was just thinking, moving forward, if we still have that or can.
Well, and we found out basically, the more of those Department of the DNR source grants you have open, the least likelihood of you getting them. So since we currently have 3 open, it's less likely that we'll get it. Until we get either the trail.
We have 4 open right now, don't we? Or has
We have 2 LWCF and 1 RTP.
Well, we had still 2 RTP open.
No, we won't know on the phase 4 of the RTP until October.
Oh, I guess I thought that we had gotten.
No, so right now, we have 1 RTP and 2 LWCFs.
Okay.
And that's why, that they kind of ding you on the amount of, how many you have open, so. I don't know, we can definitely try again, we should, we need to plan.
Unless they tell us no, I guess, so.
The worst that can really happen is they say yes, and then we don't have enough money to match it. And then they're like, oh, well, sorry, we can't get, until you honor your side of it, they're not gonna reimburse us. So if we don't have the money to build the entire project, and they do reimburse in phases, but still, we have to basically build a front.
Anything else miscellaneous?
I wanted to show this video of Robbie going to school.
Go ahead.
Is that all right?
Yeah.
Yes.
One quick note, me and Robbie found out when we were out there, was like on the lighting, there's some lower lights on the poles, the up lighting, and I was like, what's that? Never heard of it. So when the ball goes above the lights, the outdoor still ball, which was
The upper lights are
very cool.
hooded, so they're not in the outfitter's eyes. There's the lower lights illuminating the ball from underneath.
very, very nice.
I'm ready for kickoff softball.
Herman's got a good team in that, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. I didn't have time to do it this afternoon, but I've got access through graduate research, access to daily satellite imagery, and they have a feature to make a time-lapse video also. So yeah, at least by the end, I'll put together a start to finish time-lapse satellite feed.
I would just wanna say that I truly have heard a gazillion positive things about the pool and the park and everything that's happening in this hall. I hope you all are hearing the same. It's not bad, it's not. Yeah.
Are you sure?
Am I sure?
I
Yeah.
have.
People come to me and tell me good things. I gotta.
We send all the bad news to you.
Okay, good.
It's not all bad, there are bad, there is bad, but it's not all bad, it's not.
No, it's not. It's a lot of decisions,
It's
a lot of
really
work.
good, it's a
So-
really good thing.
Well, the attendance at the pool.
The attendance is amazing.
Anything else?